Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another G Crypto video. I'm your host Seth, and in today's video I wanted to talk about my favorite rebalances from the recent core refresh that went on, I think it was last week or so. But that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Alright guys, welcome back to the video. I'm your host Seth. Before we get started, do make sure to do me a favor, go down, hit the like, hit the subscribe, do all the things that you're supposed to do. That is, if you enjoy what the hell I'm talking about. If you don't, well, I guess that's fine too.
Make me really sad.
For those of you who are fans of the game Gods Unchained, which we talk about a lot here on this channel, you might know that a couple of weeks ago, I think last week, early last week, or maybe it was the week before, don't remember, but they went through basically a big core refresh where they took a lot of the core cards, they changed the domains around, they did some buffs, some nerfs, and I wanted to take a second to, after a week has gone by and I've sort of seen those cards and how they've played out in matches, how I've been able to use them, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite rebalances, some of my favorite shifts that were made during that time, and how, just like I've enjoyed some of the changes that the developers have made to the game. So there were a couple of things that changed. One, they made a couple of card rebalances to some of the Divine Order cards, and then they also did a lot of, like I said, domain shifts between cards that were neutral and moved them over to a specific domain so that they could only be used by one god. And some people were unhappy about this. I personally think ultimately it's probably for the best. We'll see. I mean, long term, we'll see how the community sort of responds overall to the shifts. But so far, I think it's mostly a positive thing. There were some things I wasn't thrilled about, which I'll probably do another video on some of the worst aspects of the rebalance. Like I really hated that they nerfed Sage of Renewal because I love that card and it's one of my best cards in one of my best decks. So not too happy about that one, but there were some good things overall. So first of all, with Divine Order, those rebalances, one that I liked a lot was the buff for the Phalanx Lieutenant. Now they changed the Phalanx Lieutenant from a 5/3 5 mana cost to a 5 mana cost 5/4, and the Phalanx Lieutenant gets armor 1. Now the reason I'm happy about this change is because in my pack opening video, which I'll put up here somewhere, I ended up with a diamond copy of the Phalanx Lieutenant. So that buff, first of all, I think makes my card a little more valuable because now it's a better card, as well as just makes it more viable of a card overall. So I'm a big fan of that change. The other change that I was a big fan of was Polyhymnia. Now they nerfed Polyhymnia, brought her down to 10 health from 12. I have never had the misfortune of going up against someone with Polyhymnia because I don't think I'm high enough in rank, honestly. But from everything I've heard, Polyhymnia was busted as fuck, so I'm glad that they ultimately nerfed that card. I think that's for the best. No card should be so ungodly good that it just wipes everything. Like, no card should be that good as that one was, and so the nerf ultimately, again, I think is for the best. And the last change that I was a big fan of was to the Forgemaster. The reason, again, I'm a fan of this is because I have 2 of them in my zombie death deck, because pretty much all of my creatures are nether creatures in that deck. So playing a Forgemaster in the mid game allows me to get a bunch of my zombies and some of my other nether creatures +1 armor, which just makes them last that much longer. And so having that change and buff from a 3/3 to a 4/3 makes it an even better card. They didn't increase the mana cost, so it just got better. And I'm a big fan of that. But that kind of wraps it up for some of the commentary that I have for the Divine Order balances. There were more. Again, I might get into some more of that in a future video, but those were the ones that stood out to me personally as just good buffs for me, as well as overall, I think just good, smart balances to those cards. But now let's get into the refreshes. Now, the refresh was basically where they took a lot of cards that previously were neutral and could be in any deck and put them into domains so that they could only be used by those specific gods. And again, overall, I think a lot of these shifts were beneficial. Now, there were 70 different domain shifts. I'm not going to go over all of them, but again, just some of the ones that stood out to me that benefited me in my deck building, as well as the ones that I've seen a lot in my recent matches that appear to have been again just good beneficial shifts overall. Now, along with the domain shifts, there were also some buffs and nerfs that happened to some of these, which I'll be getting into with each card. So first up on the list is they moved the Battlebard, which was a sort of 2 mana cost 2/2 card, which gave a +2 strength to your strongest Viking. They moved that to war. Now, this just makes sense to me. First of all, it's Viking. Most of the Vikings are war cards anyway, so it just makes sense. I think it's a good shift. I think that it reflects the overall flavor of the card and makes it so that it just jives well with pretty much what it was being used for anyway. So,
very nice.
Right. The other shift that I noticed was they put Shieldbearer into the light domain. Now, Shieldbearer to me, I was surprised, first of all, when it wasn't light the first time I saw it, because it's got so much of the light flavor, +1/+1 to a friendly creature. Light to me is all about control, buffs, and order. Like, those are the three things that come to mind when I think light. And Shieldbearer fits right down the board in all those categories. It's a solid card. I think it also got buffed to now 1/1. So overall, good change in my opinion. I think it's balanced really well, and I think it jives really well with the light deck and its flavor. The other two cards that I was a big fan of and I was very excited about when they made the change were two structures. They moved Rampart and the Portable Fortress from neutral cards over to the Magic domain. Now, my Magic deck is one of my favorite decks. I use it all the time. I use it a lot in weekend ranked because I want to get wins. And I have another video where I did some tips about how to get more wins in weekend ranked. I'll link that up here somewhere. But long story short, I love these changes. I think that the structures going over to Magic, especially the Portable Fortress, I mean, that's got Magic written all over it. But those shifts to the Magic domain are great in my opinion. I also love that they boosted each of those to one attack. They lowered the health on them both, but they gave them one attack, which to me, again, makes sense. I think it's great. It's a great adjustment. And they also removed that dumb thing where like the strength would reset to 0 at the beginning of your turn, or at the end of your turn rather, so that you could never buff them, which I think is a mistake because they're the only ones that you couldn't do that to. So I like that they lowered the health a little bit, made them specific to Magic, and overall just a good change in my opinion. Another war domain change was they moved the Inspirator, which is this, it used to be a 2/1, I think, or a 1/1 card, 1 mana cost, I think, which gave +1 to a creature when you summoned it. Now again, buffing strength and like giving pluses to creature strength is very much in the flavor of war. But Inspirator was a decent card, but not that great because it only had 1 health previously, which meant that it could be so easily destroyed, even by god powers like, you know, Blood Ritual, Mage Bolt, Orpheo's Distraction, even Selena's Mark or whatever it's called from nature if they got lucky, or if it was one of your early cards on the field. So it's just way too easy to get off the board. And the buff that they gave to it, where they made it now I think 2 mana cost, 3 attack, 2 health card, is a significant improvement over the first version. I've seen it pop up a lot more, and I definitely put it right back into my war deck as soon as I saw that change. So big fan of this one. I think it fits perfectly within the war domain, and I think it's a smart shift. Another one coming over to the Magic side is the Ballista. I love the Ballista. I've had it in 2 or 3 of my different decks, I think. But the shift to Magic, again, I kind of like this theme of like structures going over to the Magic side, just because it seems to vibe really well with the playstyle of Magic, and I just like the Ballista. I think it's great. It's got that backline ability, or backline, deal 2 damage. It's almost like an at-will, I don't know, I kind of imagine it in my head as like an arcane Ballista that shoots, you know, elemental damage off. I don't know, that's just me. But I like it. I like the change. I love that card. I use it all the time, and it is now firmly in my Magic deck to be used constantly. So big fan of that shift as well. And then finally we come to one of the shifts that I've seen. This is probably the one that I've seen the most of, actually. It's seen the most play in matches that I've come up against, and that is the Pyreshell Beetle moving from neutral domain to nature domain. I think this is an excellent shift. It's a wild creature. It's got, it has regen +1 now, which is huge. It's 1 mana cost, 1 attack, 3 defense, and inflicts burn +1. Now, I saw this creature occasionally before this buff and this refresh, but now I see it all the time with almost every nature deck. I think it's a fantastic card. It went from kind of meh to now really good, in my opinion, especially in the early game when you can get burn inflicted on a bunch of different creatures, and with that +1 regen and that 3 health, it becomes really, really good, and especially in the nature deck where you can buff those wild creatures really quickly. This card can get out of hand very fast, especially because you can get it in the game so early. So love the shift. I've put it into all of my nature decks now, including my Amazon nature deck, which you can check out in this video here, as well as my sort of nature regen based deck, which I might do a video coming up on here in the future. But that is it, you guys. Those are the sort of, again, some of the standout shifts that I saw during the refresh and the sort of balancing phase that I was a really big fan of. I'll probably do another video on some of the ones that I wasn't a big fan of, that I didn't like. You know, some of the domain shifts and things like that, some of the buffs, some of the nerfs. Like I said, Sage Renewal, do not like that, but it is what it is. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, do all the things you're supposed to do, and we will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much, and don't forget to game it till you make it. Later, guys.